Welcome to The World Today. I'm Vikas Majid Khan. Today we're covering three stories in our program. The first one is to do with the Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi's statement in China. He has stressed the need for a meaningful dialogue among regional players. Very important statement by our Foreign Minister. We must talk about that in some detail. Our second topic is to do with the three people who have lost their lives. Many were wounded in a tram shooting in Holland. We'll talk about that also. And Donald Trump has complained that he's being blamed for the New Zealand attack, and he does not believe that white nationalism is on the rise. We'll talk about that in some detail as well. Let me introduce my guests in the studio for the conversation. Joining me today, first of all, we have retired Major Adnan Qaiser Saab with us, and with him we have Salman Britani. Thank you very much, sir, for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, and Assalamu alaikum to all your viewers.
Sir, let's start with the statement of our Foreign Minister saying that meaningful dialogue between neighboring countries for ensuring peace in South Asia is a must. And he said that while attending a think tank conference in China. What do you make of this statement, sir? And what exactly does he mean by a meaningful dialogue?
You see, thank you very much for inviting me once again. It's always a delight to be with you. So first of all, understand this Afghan conundrum has been ongoing for the past about 40 years or so. First we had Afghan Jihad, and then this war on terror in whatever manifestation it took place. And Pakistan has always held a principal stance that first of all, this is a political solution, a political issue which needs to be addressed politically. There is no military solution to that. So that's why people, all the stakeholders need to sit together. And they need to first of all diagnose the problem and then prescribe its prescription. Unfortunately, that has not been done. And allow me to share a pun with you internationally. It used to be said that what stays on the ground while traveling around the world? Afghanistan's peace process. And you have seen it. We had seen the London conferences. Whatever the Munich, the Germany, the Bonn process, Heart of Asia, Istanbul process, the Raqqa, and then we had our own quadrilateral framework, and now the latest Moscow format, and then the Beijing talks. So this, there are too many cooks. Unfortunately, it's spoiling the broth, but somehow or the other, everyone has to sit together to find out a political solution to this problem, because it's a matter of our collective destiny in this 21st century. Our destinies are interconnected to each other. So we cannot say that this is an Afghanistan's sole issue. We have historical, cultural, and religious ties with them, and we have always been propagating that this regional issue, all the stakeholders should sit together, and we have been propagating this stance. So what Foreign Minister has said, this is nothing new. This is just a reiteration of our fundamental principle stance that this political issue needs to be addressed by all the regional players.
And I think there's also a Foreign Minister's strategic dialogue that is going to be conducted during this meeting and this visit of our Foreign Minister. Sir, what in your opinion are the strategic importance or points for Pakistan to be really discussing in this upcoming Foreign Ministers Conference, sir? In your opinion, sir, if you could just list them out, what's the most important thing that right now Pakistan needs to be focusing on strategically?
First of all, to understand that we had been a strategic partner of United States for the past, around 70 years or so. So we withstood the United States as well as the West during the Cold War, and we had been their frontline ally during the war, Afghan Jihad, to stop the onslaught of the Soviet Union. Then we participated as a major non-NATO ally in the war on terror. So that was a strategic partnership with the United States and the West. Unfortunately, somehow the United States focus changed towards India. So they saw India as a regional power, and they wanted to propagate it as a hedge against China. They wanted to keep Chinese rise in check, and so that's why they wanted to. So that's how, and it started in year 2000, especially after the end of the Cold War. The United States focus slowly and gradually changed towards engaging with India as a strategic partner. So obviously, with the change, with the shift in United States, obviously there had been a vacuum. So we had to obviously we had to reorient our strategic shift as well. And obviously, Pakistan had very strong, historic, very strong
relationship
with China. So obviously, then we started fostering it further, and now that has reached to a strategic level. So in the past we used to have a strategic dialogue with the United States that has over the period of time it ended, and now we are fully integrated in the vision with China. CPAC is one of the manifestation. Our close defense collaboration with China is another manifestation. And the important thing is our meeting of the minds. Pakistan and China, as Professor Saab has said, they are on the same page when it comes to regional understanding, may it be Iran, may it be Afghanistan, may it be Kashmir, or may it be India. So we do not want to be seen as a foe to any regional country, but at the same time, we would like to be seen as partnering towards regional peace together. And this strategic dialogue or whatever, it shows a solidarity between our two countries. It is going to further solidify our historic relations in all the fields. Now, as you see, we are economically integrating into each other with the CPAC becoming a reality in the near future. And somehow or the other, it is seen with suspicion by the West as well as by India as well. So that is very unfortunate, of course, but it has to be. We have to show to the other countries of the world that this is one is our right to partner with any country of the world, and secondly, we are partnering with the other countries of the world for the regional peace and solidarity of
In fact, that is to do with the unfortunate events in Holland, sir. 3 people are dead and many have been wounded in an attack in a tram. What do you make of this, sir? We just saw this terrorist attack take place in New Zealand, and then a few days later we see what happened in Holland. Do you think that the two are related in any way, or that there is no connection, it is just pure sheer coincidence, and even the motives behind these two incidents are completely different and they should not be really compared to each other?
First of all, try to understand that the world has changed. We saw the world change with the end of the Cold War. It lasted for quite a long time. And when in 1991, when we saw the disintegration of former Soviet Union, the world had altogether became a strange phenomena. So there had been a vacuum in this. And at that time, I remember there had been an important book which came by Samuel Huntington. It was called The Clash of Civilizations. So in that, he had mentioned that with the end of the Cold War, the world is moving towards the clash of civilizations. As you see, we have 5 very ancient civilizations in our neighborhood, and the same thing happened later on. If you see that this neoconservatives, they created an Islamophobia as well. So it's debatable that Al Qaeda was created for specific reasons, and later on ISIS or Islamic State was also created, and then this Islamophobia was created, and then it definitely affected the peace of the whole world. There had been very unfortunate incidents which were blamed at the door of Islamic terrorism. But now the world has seen that it's kind of a reverse phenomena. that the white people have started to take a kind of a revenge on Muslims. So terrorism in any manifestation is to be condemned, period. There are no two ways about that. Whether Muslims do it or any white person or Western country, it is taken place by the West. So the same thing. We have to first understand the mindset. What creates this fundamentalism or extremism in anybody's mind? This is very unfortunate. What happened in New Zealand, precious lives were lost. What happened in Holland, again, very unfortunate. But again, unless we understand the root causes of this terrorism by anybody, and I'm very glad that the eminent leaders, world leaders like Prime Minister Trudeau, Justin Trudeau, has come out in support of the Muslims when this New Zealand attack took place. And he said that Muslims in the multicultural and diversified society of Canada, Muslims are playing a very significant role. And the same thing. So terrorism conducted by any person, whether white or brown or black, has to be condemned. But unless we understand the root causes, either it is a repercussion of what is taking place in Iraq, Syria, or Libya, for instance, or even in Afghanistan, or most importantly in Kashmir. And it could be the white people are taking a revenge kind of a thing. This has to be changed. It needs a narrative or a mindset change, which needs to be understood and addressed.
Absolutely. I think that just before the program with Major Adnan, would you like to also share with us your views on this particular issue?
Two things we must understand. Differentiate between the apples and oranges. Two things. The Professor Saab is saying about the immigrants or migrants who go for economic prosperity towards those countries. This is another element. This is one of the elements which causes upheaval in those society, resentment, because obviously the jobs are taken.
But again, this is a very strange kind of an argument, sir, because if a job is available for a particular skill set, or if for a doctor or an engineer, and if I am not a doctor or an engineer, how can I complain about not getting the job? So it's very really absurd.
But again, if you recall, presently again, France has seen two movements. The Yellow Vest thing, uprising these days, unrest is taking place. And previously, a few years ago, there was another unrest in the streets of France because of the same migrants, because they felt discriminated. This is one element, and this, I believe, is a very, very minor element because the pie is too big in the Western countries.
The Yellow Vests have nothing to do with the terrorism issue, sir.
Yes, so the second element is the terrorism issue, and which I believe this white supremacy or whatever is what you are saying is linked to the clash of civilizations, which I mentioned in the first in earlier discussion. Understand that, you know, an Islamophobia had been created. First of all, a mindset, a narrative was built that Al-Qaeda is obviously 9/11 had been a very, very unfortunate incident, and subsequent events were also pretty unfortunate. So again, so this Al-Qaeda and later on this Islamic State, whatever terrorism it has caused, obviously it has created a lot of resentment, a kind of a revenge feeling among the white people as well.
The point is that when these groups went about doing whatever they did, causing mayhem and terror.
Which groups? Muslims?
ISIS and Al-Qaeda that you're referring to, sir.
Yes.
They were denounced by all the major scholars of Islam. They said they have nothing to do with Islam, and they also, they drew a line and they stepped back from these fringe groups and said, we have nothing to do with them. Now here you have a different situation where Mr. Donald Trump needed to tweet out, and that is our third topic as well, which is connected to the second one, sir, that he's being blamed for the attack in New Zealand, and it is, the fake media is at its best trying to discredit him, and they'll have to try really hard. And At the same time, he does not really believe that white nationalism is on the rise. And that is really the strange bit, because according to American Homeland Security, they have identified white supremacist terrorism as a growing risk of domestic terrorism within the United States. So we have a disconnect between what the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is saying and what all the other leaders of the Islamic world have said by distancing themselves and disassociating themselves from the actions of these terrorist groups.
So understand, you have yourself answered, reply to your question, that when this Islamic, so-called Islamic terrorism was carried out, everyone, including the Muslim leaders, they condemned it outrightly. Now the same thing is happening in the West. The senior leadership in Europe and New Zealand and Australia, they have condemned it. Why the United States has not done it? It is obviously, we know that for the past about 2 or 3 years, it has been related to their politics. So sometimes a leader does say something or does not say something only because of his political capital. So obviously, we know that President Trump has become American president only because of the white votes. So he had made a commitment towards them. So this is his political capital, which he does not want to lose in the next forthcoming elections. So, but again, the saner elements, the world today is integrated into multiculturalism. There had been all kinds of people in different countries of the world. People have realized their interdependence. Our destinies, as I mentioned, are interdependent upon each other. So we have to understand the threat, and then we have to condemn it, and then we have to rectify our societies as well. The Professor Saab was saying that we should, in our society, in Pakistan as well, we should be forthcoming in condemning what happened, whether it is conducted by a white male or it is conducted by any Muslim.
Indeed, sir, there's no argument as far as what Salman was talking about in terms of condemning any, act which is against,
humanity.
Absolutely. So we do condemn those acts. The point here now is, sir, that what we're seeing is this rise in the fear that is being shown by white nationalists, this fear of being taken over, of, by being eliminated by the hordes of migrants that are entering into the... And this is one of the reasons why Donald Trump has also been talking about building the wall on the Mexican border. So all these things are really connected, sir. At the end of the day, what we're talking about is economics. And it is those who feel economically deprived or economically challenged that take up these issues such as terrorism, and they give it the color of any religion or ethnicity. They want to, draw from those some kind of a perverse inspiration. That's the real problem, sir. That is the fight that we need to fight, which is make right-thinking individuals see beyond this very vile rhetoric, which is demonizing another human being because of his race or his color, the color of his skin or his religious beliefs. This is where we have to draw the line, sir, that you cannot confuse that with economics.
Allow me to say just a brief statement.
So,
well, first of all, United States is not the world. So first of all, when we say people have condemned, the international community has condemned whatever happened in New Zealand, whatever happened in Holland, so it has to be condemned. So what United States does for political purposes, obviously it affects our lives, but again, we cannot focus or limit our thinking towards just a superpower only. We have to consider we have a United Nations, we have other countries of the world, and we have to understand their thought as well. Now, allow me to say that, I, as a Middle East observer, two things happened in Canada, since I live in Canada. So two things, and I highlighted as well in my different papers as well. Canada declined to participate in the war on Iraq in 2003 during the Liberal government of Prime Minister Chrétien. Then Prime Minister Trudeau, Justin Trudeau, when he took over power in 2016, he withdrew air jets from our military airstrikes against ISIS in Iraq. So both things I highlighted at public forums as well. I said, I think that these two decisions, political decisions, Canada had to pay a cost for that as well. But these two decisions saved Canada from different incidents like 7/7, the London train bombing, Madrid bombing, Charlie Hebdo, and other events which took place in Spain as well. So if the political leadership in the West understands the political ramifications of taking on on any civilization, even a Muslim civilization or not. But again, the same thing, the menace has to be eradicated, but there are ways and means to do that. If you envelop it under the whole religion or whole Muslim community, so then again, resentment will be created against in the Muslim community as well. And again, the same thing in the reverse.
So it will be a perpetual cycle of hate. So the question here is absolutely right. I think we leave it at that. Thank you very much for taking out the time and sharing your views with PTV World.
My pleasure.
Well, you heard the conversation. And as always, we like to say, please draw your own conclusions from what you've heard. And on that note, it's goodbye.